Thanks, Ron. Hi, everybody. As Ron mentioned, my name's Amelia Berman, and I'm the section manager for e-mobility outreach for Con Edison. And I'm going to share a little bit about what Con Edison has been working on in the EV space. So I want to start by giving you a bit of background into Con Edison's clean energy commitment and our core pillars. So in 2021, Con Edison expanded its clean energy commitment, pledging to deliver 100% clean power by 2040, and also reimagine our gas delivery system in efforts to decarbonize towards a net zero future. Among our initiatives, we're empowering our customers through support for solar energy, battery storage, and other clean energy technologies, which will be backed by the near complete rollout of smart meters across our customer base. We're almost done with that. And from our own carbon footprint perspective, we have reduced our own greenhouse gas emissions by more than half since 2005. And we've established a net zero target for scope 1 emissions, those that come from our own facilities, by 2040. So a lot of great stuff happening in our area, but where do electric vehicles fit in? And that's where I come in. Since the transportation sector accounts for nearly 50% of all carbon emissions in New York State and 30% in New York City, it's really essential that we focus our efforts on transportation electrification. So everything we're doing here in the electric vehicles group at Con Ed is to meet the state goals that lower greenhouse gas emissions. You can see here what we're working towards today is 85% greenhouse gas reduction by 2050 and 40% by 2030. So our aim is supporting our residential, commercial customers and government partners to transition their car, bus, or truck fleets to electric, which will improve air quality, particularly in environmental justice communities. And we're also collaborating with interested stakeholders, including local municipalities and the real estate community, to identify key changes that are needed to foster a more electrification-ready environment so that infrastructure investments, planning, land use, building codes, and like all of the other policies that go into it are in place to ensure this seamless energy transition. So all of our initiatives and programs are really aligned with state goals in mind. And I'm going to go over each of these in more detail, but wanted to kind of provide this snapshot of our progress so far. So running down the list, we have our light duty make ready program, which we've rebranded as PowerReady, and our medium duty make ready pilot program. And those are upfront incentives that developers can use to actually lower the capital cost of putting infrastructure into the ground. It's a really popular program, a lot of work going on there. And then moving on to the other operating incentives and rates, we have our SmartCharge program, which is our managed charging program. A lot of the New York utilities have these managed charging programs, and its aim is to modify customer behavior and have them charge their EVs off peak, providing them incentives to do so. And this helps alleviate strain on the distribution grid. Then I'm going to get into demonstration projects where a lot of innovative stuff has been happening. One that has just wrapped up last year is the school bus V2G project. That's vehicle to grid. And another one is the curbside demonstration project that's currently going on. And then last but definitely not least is our customer education efforts to help folks in our territory move towards EVs and transit electrification. So starting off with our infrastructure programs first, as mentioned, transportation electrification is a critical part of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving local air quality. And we know the main reason people are hesitant to buy electric cars is because it's hard to get access to EV charging, especially for dense urban places like New York City, where private parking spots are pretty uncommon. So potential EV drivers need to see that there's easy access to charging stations near their homes and out on the road. So in this early stage of the EV market, we really need incentives to encourage development of charging stations. And so the PowerReady program is a build it and they will come approach. By funding infrastructure upgrades for charging stations, adoption of electric vehicles will increase, which will encourage more charging, which will make it more economic for more charging stations. That's the whole philosophy. So the PowerReady program was authorized in July of 2020 by the Public Service Commission. It's a 5-year program that provides incentives that reduce capital costs on both the utility side and the customer side of making a site's power ready to accept chargers. We were allocated about $250 million in funds to meet our 5-year goal, which is to get 18,000 level 2 chargers and 500 DC fast chargers installed by the end of 2025 in our service territory, which is the 5 boroughs of New York City and Westchester. The market response to this program has been extraordinary. Currently in our program queue, we have almost 18,000 level 2 plugs and over 1,600 DCFC plugs. And this is the second largest Make Ready program in the country right now. So we're pretty thrilled on how it's going. Getting into kind of the details on how the program works for a minute, the first question asked is always, what equipment is eligible? And the answer is any equipment or labor that's needed to upgrade the infrastructure to bring power to the chargers on the utility or customer side. So what do we mean by utility side and customer side? Well, to start to the left on the utility side, everything to the left of the point of entry is utility owned. We are managing the construction just like we do for any new kind of load on our system. This includes transformers, new distribution, that kind of stuff. And that is new business costs that are typically paid for by the utility and are not part of the program. However, anything the customer may request that would go above and beyond that would typically come out of the customer's pocket, but could now be covered by our program. The point of entry delineates where our boundary ends and where customer property begins. So everything to the right of the point of entry is the customer side. And as you can see, our program also covers customer side equipment like step-up transformers, panel upgrades, and trenching. This is all construction that the customer is responsible for managing and owning, but our program can help cover some of those costs as well. I do want to point out the eligibility line to the right is where our program coverage ends. So our program doesn't actually cover the charger, the pedestal, software, or charger installation costs. Again, we're just covering the infrastructure needed to bring service to those chargers. And I touched briefly on this before, but to mention our other infrastructure incentive program, again, our medium heavy duty Make Ready pilot program is structured slightly different than our light duty program, where here we're just focusing on covering any above and beyond utility side costs that the customer might have to cover. This pilot started in 2020 and is just wrapping up this year. And I believe there are discussions to potentially roll out a full program targeted at medium heavy duty electrification at some point in the future. Really excited about it. There's definitely a need for it. Moving on, wanted to give you an overview of some of our demo projects. And the first up is the school bus V2G. So we wrapped this up at the end of 2021 and filed our final report earlier this year. And this is a really interesting project. Many of you have heard of vehicle to grid, where it's using a distributed energy resource, or DER, almost as a battery, as a way to feed the grid itself. So Con Ed teamed up with a bunch of folks to make this happen. And I think there were 3 major things that this project was testing. How does this affect EV bus operations? Does vehicle to grid work? And lastly, what's the impact on that vehicle battery? And the results are actually included in the report that we filed, and you can always check that out on the PSC website. We did find that V2G was successful. We were able to feed back to the grid. And we also learned that technology has evolved since we first started the pilot. So by moving forward with newer technology, understanding certain standards that have to be met, safety and interconnection wise, this is definitely something that's possible in the future. And I also want to mention this was the first school bus V2G project in the country. Currently, there's our Curbside EV Charging demo project, and I think this is a really important one in New York because obviously in New York City, we don't all have garages or private parking spaces. We don't have our own charging infrastructure available to us. So the question was, how do we really encourage people to move to EV if there's no charging infrastructure available? So Con Ed linked up with partners Flow and DOT to install over 100 level 2 EV chargers on curbs throughout the 5 boroughs. I believe when this project first started, we were looking for a 6% utilization rate. And the current utilization rate now is at 25%, which is huge. And I believe that the construction on the 100th plug is being completed as we speak. So this demo is going to run through 2024. When it's over and we have all the lessons learned, maybe there will be some other developer or maybe DOT can move forward and increase the amount of curbside charging in New York, which would really just help New Yorkers in the end. Moving on, our SmartCharge New York incentive program. This has been in place since 2017, and it actually ends this December. There will be a new program coming out with slightly different rules, but the idea behind SmartCharge is really to provide off-peak charging incentives to EV users, and it's really to encourage folks to buy EVs and charge at better times, specifically off-peak. Off-peak charging really helps us reduce grid congestion and also helps us plan for load increases in different areas. In terms of benefits for the customers, there's a variety of ways to earn rewards for this program, and it's been extremely successful so far. So looking out to next year in the new program, there was an order put out by the PSC just about a month ago regarding the new program. And next year, there will also hopefully be a program that can assist with commercial vehicles like medium duty and heavy duty as well. So at the moment, we're looking at how technology has evolved since program inception and really looking into leveraging telematics and APIs and different ways in general to encourage our customers and make sure that we're getting the right data to do so. And then finally, moving into customer education, I'm going to touch on fleet assessment services. This came to us in 2020 as well, where the PSC put out an order where the utilities will provide assistance to fleet operators to electrify through site analysis as well as rate analysis. So we want to be helpful in terms of educating and making our customers aware of some of the existing incentive programs that we have, but also leveraging our existing business processes and making it as seamless as possible to get folks on their way. So the site assessment is currently outside of our regular energy services process, but eventually pushing them into one of those workflows that exists and helping them understand their rates a little bit better. On rates a little bit, I'm not sure how many of you have actually spent time looking at the tariffs, but you know they're lengthy. So we've created an educational tool to help folks navigate their way to determine what rate is going to be best for them once they install EV chargers. So folks can log into charging.coned.com, enter their desired number of chargers to install, the rough utilization period, and the tool will pop out an estimate on what rate would be the best fit for their situation. You can also compare rates, get a rough idea of what your monthly electric bill would look like and how the utilization rate will impact your bill. We deployed this earlier this year, and we're really excited about how many folks have used the tool so far. I should mention that this tool is meant as guidance as part of your deployment planning process. So the actual amount on your electric bill may look a little different than the output in the tool. And that's it about for me. Overall, we got a lot of exciting stuff going on in EV, and we're continuing to push the acceleration of EV adoption in New York City. Thank you.